know what you're being asked to do before you can answer the question. Now, as a warm-up, we're going to look at solving this equation to find the value of y. Now, our key facts are that we have got to solve. And what this means is solving means find y. So we've got to rearrange this equation to get y on its own. Now, when it's got all numbers in here and only one letter, the word solve means just rearrange this equation and get an answer out. But the process that we are doing when we come to solve, we've basically got to rearrange this equation to get y on its own, and we've got to find the opposite operations to be able to do this. So you need to know your opposite operations to rearrange. You need to know plus is the opposite of minus and opposite way round, so vice versa. Negative is the opposite of positive. Multiply and divide are the opposite of each other. Squaring and the square root are opposite of each other. And cubing and the cube root are opposite of each other. These are the main ones you will come across. So using this information, see if you can solve to find the value of y, but it is important you know the steps you are doing to be able to get the answer rather than the answer is whatever the answer is you've worked out. So I'm not interested in the value of y, I'm interested in the method to get y. So to start with, you should have looked at this equation and you should have decided the thing furthest away from the y is this -2. So we're going to take away 2 from the 4y. So the opposite to take away 2 is +2. So we're going to add 2 to both sides. Now this method here is a method we're going to use when we come to rearrange. So this is basically rearranging with numbers, but when it comes to the exam, you will have to rearrange with letters. So 14 plus 2 is 16, and that is going to equal to 4y, because when I add +2 and -2, they cancel out, leaving me with 0. So these terms here just disappear. Now I need to get y on its own. So this means 4 times by y. So the opposite to times by y over here, opposite of times, is divide. So we're going to divide both sides by 4, which is the same as writing it as 16 over 4. Now the reason I've written it in this form here is so you can see the method that I am using. Now you all know the answer that 16 divided by 4 is 4, so you don't actually need to write this step down, but by writing this step it will make it easier to see your next example. And obviously we know the answer is 4, so y is equal to 4. Some of you will be able to look at that equation and think 4 times 4 is 16, take away 2 is 14. Yes, my answer is 4. So some of you can look at that equation and just get the answer out, which is fantastic if it is a solved question. But when we're looking at rearranging or make x the subject, or in this case make y the subject, you need to know the method. So you've got to be able to do all these stages that I've put in here to be able to help you. So the method is more important than the answer. So using this method, we're going to be looking at working this out when we don't have numbers everywhere, we have got letters. So the next example is very similar, but it is going to be using letters rather than numbers. Now this example is very similar to the last example, but instead of having the letter Y, we have got the letter T. Now the question says make T the subject of the formula, and the key facts from this question are that the T is the subject. So that means you've got to rearrange this expression to get T equals, and what is the value for T? Last time we got y equals 4 and it was just a number, but this time it's not going to be just a number because there's mainly letters in this expression. And that's what confuses people, because there's letters, no numbers. A formula is basically an expression that is T equals, using the letters P, D and 2B, you've got to come up with an expression where it says T equals. That's what your formula is. Now this is be on the calculative exam, or it could be on the non-calculative exam. You don't need to use a calculator to answer this question, which is often why they put it on the calculative exam, because you don't need to use your calculator. The examiners like to do that to try and make it a little bit more difficult. Our key facts to answer this question: we're going to make T the subject, which means we're going to rearrange the equation to find an equation that starts T equals. And that's what that question here, make T the subject of the formula. And that's the language they will use in the exam. So you need to be familiar with this language. Again, as you've seen before, the opposite operations are exactly the same as we had last time. We will be using these two here, operations, for this question because there are no squares, cubes, or square roots or cube roots. So going to the question, if you can, see if you can rearrange to find t before I do. If not, work through at the same pace as me. Feel free to pause the video at any point. So to start with, we're going to get rid of the thing furthest away from the t. So t is here, the thing furthest away from the t is the minus 2b. We're going to do the opposite to take away 2b. The opposite to take away is plus, so we're going to add 2b to both sides. Now don't worry that we've got letters. Okay, the last example, we had 12 or 14 plus 2, which gave me the 16. So I had a 14 here plus a 2, which gave me 16. Here I've got a p plus 2b. You literally write down what it says, p plus 2b. Don't be put off that you can't work out the answer to it. It doesn't have to have a number value like you did before. So p plus 2b is equal to d times t. So I've now got two things multiplied together. Same as I had in the last example, I had 4y. To get rid of a times by 4, I had to divide by 4. So this time here, the opposite of times by d is divide. So I'm going to divide both sides by d. So dividing both sides by d, we're going to divide. But again, with the last example, I wrote it as a fraction. So I wrote p plus 2b over d. That means p plus 2b divided by d. That's how we write it, and we have now got a formula. So t is equal to p plus 2b over d, or in this case I've got p plus 2b over d is equal to t. You can swap this to the other side so it becomes t equals the same expression, p plus 2b divided by d. Now if you wrote that in the exam you would get it correct, and that would be full marks. You could also write it in a different form. So you could split this up into two fractions. So we could say that this is p divided by d plus 2b divided by d. The advantage of doing this sometimes, if p had a value and d was the number 2, so say this was 6p divided by 2, you could divide the 6 of the 2 to give you a 3p. So it depends on what values have been given. So sometimes it is easier to separate it back into two separate fractions. It's a little trick, but either of these two answers would give you full marks in the exam. It doesn't matter which form you write it in. Give yourself a big tick if you got it correct. Well done. Great work. Example 2 is very similar to the last example you've seen, but we've now got a fraction in the first part of it, and then we've got the plus on the end rather than a subtract. So we're going to do exactly the same again. We're going to make x the subject of the formula this time. So we've got to rearrange this one to get x equals. You'll notice the x is on the right hand side, and this is what they often do in the exam. Put the x on the right hand side where you normally like to have the x on the left hand side. It doesn't matter which side it is on. We're going to follow through these steps that we used last time to see if we can work out the value of x equals. So in this case, it is going to be x equals rather than last time we had t equals. So to make this x equals, first of all, we're going to get rid of the thing furthest away from the x, and that is this plus 2b. So the opposite to plus 2b is subtract 2b. Give yourself a big tick if you've managed to think, yes, it's 2, take away 2b from both sides. See if you can have a go at working through and getting to the answer before I get to the answer. Feel free to pause the video at any point to slow down and give yourself time to work out the answer. So take away 2b. Again, on the left-hand side, you don't have to worry about getting a number value. You literally write down what you see. Y take away 2b. Doesn't matter if it doesn't simplify into a nice number like you're used to doing. You literally just write y take away 2b. This plus 2b and minus 2b just cancel, leaving you with the x over a. So y take away 2b is equal to x over a. It is fine to leave your answer like that. Okay, don't worry about trying to simplify it or combine the terms. They are two separate terms. We now need to get rid of this divide by a. So this sign here means divide by a. So this is x divided by a. The opposite to divide is multiply. So we're going to look at this a and we're going to multiply both sides by a. Now when we multiply the left hand side by a, that is everything on the left hand side has to multiply by a. And when we multiply this divide by a, the a's will cancel out on the right hand side, leaving you just with x. When you multiply everything by a, you can write a and then put a bracket round the expression y minus 2b. If you wrote that in the exam, you would get full marks. You can write it the opposite way round, so you get x is equal to a times by y minus 2b. Or you can even expand these two this bracket to be able to get the answer of a times by y to give you ay, and a times by minus 2b or negative 2b to give you negative 2ab. Remember, when you expand, it's like you've got the little Santa hat here, so you multiply a by both the terms in the bracket, and this answer here, or the answer above, or even the one here where you've got a bracket y minus 2b equals x, all three of these answers are exactly the same and they will all give you full marks in the exam. So as long as you have written an expression saying x equals, you will get full marks in the exam. So give yourself a big tick if you managed to get that correct. Well done. In this third example, we're going to look at rearrange this equation to get k equals. So make k the subject of the formula. So this time we're going to get an expression for k equals. So k is in here. We've got a k cubed. So this time we're going to be looking at using these two bottom operations because we've got the opposite of square root is squaring and the opposite of cube root is cubing. And you can see we've got a square root over the whole lot of it and we've got a cubed in here. So we're going to have to use these bottom two facts. Press pause, see if you can think about rearranging to find k, and then press play when you've got the answer. Great work. So hopefully you've managed to have a go at trying to work this through on your own to get k equals. So our first step is getting rid of the thing furthest away from the k, and that is this root that is over the whole expression. So we're going to get rid of this square root term first. Now the opposite to square root is squared, so I'm going to square both sides. So p squared just becomes p squared. When I square the right hand side, this root disappears, leaving me with k cubed minus 2b, all divided by a. From here, I now need to get rid of this fraction. I'm going to get rid of this dividing by a. So the opposite to divided by a is multiply both sides by a. It doesn't matter whether you put the a in front of the p or behind the p. So p squared a or even ap squared is exactly the same on the left hand side, leaving you with k cubed minus 2b because dividing by a and timesing by a cancel, leaving you just with the numerator on the right hand side. The next thing furthest away from the k is the minus 2b. So the opposite to take away 2b is plus 2b, so I'm going to add 2b to both sides. Again, don't be put off when you're adding 2b to this left-hand side because this 2b can just go as p squared a plus 2b is equal to k cubed. We now need to get k on its own, the opposite of cubing over here. So cube root is cubing. So the opposite of cubing is the cube root. So I need to take the cube root of both sides. So our final answer will be written as the cube root of p squared times by a plus 2 times b is equal to k, or you could have written it the other way round, so k is equal to the cube root of p squared a plus 2b. Give yourself a big tick if you got that correct. Well done. Again, this question could be on the calculator paper or non-calculator paper, but the wording will be make k the subject of the formula. You need to understand what that means and how to follow these steps. This is our last example where we're going to make m the subject of the formula. So that means we're going to get an equation so it is m equals. Now this one is the hardest one we've done so far, and the reason for this is because there is an m in the numerator and the denominator. We just want to get m on its own. So there's a lot of steps involved in order to rearrange this to get m. Now as soon as you see two lots of m's or even this fraction, the first thing you should be thinking about is getting rid of the fraction and then try and combine the m terms together, and then you'll be able to factorize an m out in order to rearrange to get an expression so you've got m equals. Press pause, see if you can follow those steps and have a go at working out the value of m, then press play when you're ready to hear the answer. Great work, hopefully you've managed to come up with an answer. So to start with, we're going to get rid of this divide by 4 plus m. So the opposite to divide is multiply. So we're going to divide both sides by 4 plus m, or we're going to multiply them both. So p times by 4 plus m, just leave it in brackets. It becomes p bracket 4 plus m is going to equal to the numerator 5 minus 2m, because this divide by 4 plus m and the times by 4 plus m cancel each other out, leaving you just with the numerator on the right hand side. Next, we need to expand this bracket because we need to get these two m terms together. So we need to expand this out. So I've got an m term here and an m term here. So I have got 4 times by p, which is going to give me 4p. I've got p times by m, which is going to give me pm. Remember, when we expand, it's like we use this little Santa hat. So p multiplies by both terms in the bracket. Once we've done this, we then need to put it equal to what's on the right hand side. Now we need to collect these m terms together. So we're going to take the smallest number of m. Now you might think you have no clue which is the smallest number of m, but this one on the left hand side is positive and this one on the right hand side is negative. So negative has got to be smaller than a positive. So we're going to take the smallest m term and we're going to get rid of this minus 2m and we're going to add 2m to both sides. If you'd have done it the other way, it will still give you an answer, but you'll just have to factorise a value of -1 out later on. So it is easier to work with positives, which is why I'm adding 2m to both sides. So when I add 2m to the left-hand side, I literally write down what I've already got, 4p plus pm plus the 2m, and then that is going to equal the 5 because these 2m's here cancel out. So it's what you've just seen, the 4p plus the 2pm plus the 2m is equal to 5. Now I only want the m terms on the left hand side, so I need to get rid of this other term, which is the plus 4p. Now the opposite to plus 4p is subtract 4p. So I'm going to subtract 4p from both sides. When I subtract 4p from the left hand side, that just disappears, leaving me with pm plus 2m. And then I will just write down 5 minus 4p. From here, I need to factorise now because I've got to make m the subject, which means m needs to be on its own. So to be able to get m on its own, I must factorise, which means take m out the front of a bracket. So if I divide this first term with m, I'm left with a p, and if I divide the second term by m, I'm left with a 2, which factorises to give me m bracket p plus 2 is equal to the right hand side 5 minus 4p. So factorise the left hand side here to get m on its own. Originally I had 2 m's in the expression. Now I've only got 1 m in this expression. So now I can find m to be the subject because I've got one lot of m. From here I now have got m times by p plus 2. So to get rid of the plus p plus 2, I'm going to do the opposite, which is divide by p plus 2. So m is going to be 5 minus 4p, all divided by p plus 2. Don't be put off that your answer is written as a fraction. Okay? The numerator stays the same on the right hand side. We're just dividing by what's in the bracket, which is p plus 2, and that gives me my value of m. Give yourself a big tick if you got that correct. Well done, great work. If you could do all these questions, this will really help you to be able to solve, to rearrange and be able to make any letter the subject of the formula for the exam. So make sure you know how to do this because it will come up on one of the 3 exam papers you've got to do. So make sure it is nice and clear. So well done.